everyone, and welcome to our weekly Power Lounge. This is your place to hear authentic conversations from those who have power to share. My name is Amy Vaughn, and I am the owner and Chief Empowerment Officer of Together Digital, a diverse and collaborative community of women who work in digital and choose to share their knowledge, power, and connections. You can join the movement at togetherindigital.com. And today we are joined by Erin Maxson. She is mastering the art of impact marketing at one of America's largest workplace providers, and who is also an amazing partner to Together Digital, COHatch. Erin is joining the show to tell us about how making a difference doesn't have to break the bank. In fact, some of the most powerful community initiatives don't cost a dime. From her home based in Phoenix, which I'm kind of sort of jealous about right now because I am sitting in gloomy Cincinnati, Ohio, where she balances national digital strategies with her love for desert adventure, her 3 dogs. Erin brings a unique perspective on how technology and marketing can be forces for good. She is going to share practical, accessible ways to weave purpose into your marketing DNA. So whether you're a seasoned marketer looking to add more meaning into your campaigns, or you're just starting to explore your work and how to create positive change, this conversation is certainly for you. We will talk about finding your why, maximizing your impact on a minimal budget, and why the bottom line isn't the only line that actually matters. So grab your coffee, your tea, your notebook, and join us for the next hour as we explore how to make marketing matter more. And for those of you who are with us listening live, don't forget you can join the conversation through the chat. We love to hear your comments and especially your questions. Erin, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Me too. Again, this is something near and dear to my heart. I've been a marketer for longer than I would probably like to say. It stops at 15 years, and then I just kind of quit adding years after that. I'm like, we're just going to stop counting. Kind of after 40, I'm like, and then some change. But mission is just another, and purpose is just another thing that over the years has just become more and more prevalent and meaningful, not to just us marketers, but to consumers as well. And I'm really curious for you to share with our listeners, that how purpose has become a part of your journey. I know you've said in the past it's been there kind of from the start, but what was that first moment that sparked your interest in impact-driven marketing?
Yeah, so I graduated with a marketing degree and I had changed my major 7 times. And it got to the point where I was just like, I got to get out of here, man. And so I ended up going back to the College of Business and I got my marketing degree. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I was really into sports then, thought I was going to work in the NBA, which is a little bit of a different kind of life, 120-hour weeks and always being on the go. Paycheck did not add up. So I started looking at other things. And I got my first job out of college, remote. It was a remote job for an agency based out of Louisiana. And I was living in Fort Worth. I'd love to say that agency was very impact driven. It was not. But in my free time is kind of where I started mixing the impact and the marketing. I had just adopted a dog about a year prior. Her name is Laurie, and you're probably going to hear all about her. She's my little angel dog. But I was doing marketing of all kinds. I was kind of just getting started in agency life, picking up things that I could. So I had a lot of random skill sets, social media, content creation, copywriting, advertising, all that stuff. And I started volunteering at a local shelter. So it kind of went hand in hand that as I started getting more involved with the shelter, they had a lot of needs, obviously understaffed, not enough funding, all of that fun stuff we all are. Know is common knowledge in a lot of different industries. But I was volunteering at this kill shelter in Fort Worth, and it really opened my eyes to how much marketing makes an impact and can really change the lives of everybody, whether that's a dog or a person or a family. I spent a lot of time doing social media stuff, doing photos, writing bios for dogs, and really like we could get one photo and one good bio out. You could get a dog that had been in the shelter for 200 plus days adopted in a weekend.
Wow.
And it was one of those things that it makes you realize that a lot of us do a lot of the same things every day in marketing. Like you may be posting social posts every single day.
Mhm.
But it was such a eye-opening experience for me to see it really go that far and make an impact. And it also made me want to bring that back into work, right? I had a lot of small business clients at the time that I think it's a pretty common theme that everybody's like, I can't make an impact. I just need to, make enough revenue in order to survive this month kind of thing. But
Mhm.
I was able to kind of take some of those experiences from that volunteer work, and it really kind of spurned everything else in my life afterwards, and just trying to make the most impact as possible. So it was very hard and difficult, but it was also
Yeah.
very rewarding. So I think that is always the common theme as well with impact marketing. It's not easy to do
Mhm.
most of the time, but it can be very inexpensive and also make a really big difference if you know what you're doing and where to start.
Right. I love that so much, Erin. I'm very much with you. I'm an animal lover and have been since childhood. And I think oftentimes, in order to quell the drama that happens sometimes in marketing and advertising, I've said, we're not saving lives here. But what
Yeah.
you just said is that you actually can, and you were
You
saving
can.
lives with your
Yeah.
marketing. And I love that so much
I know. I
because
say I
you're
may not be able
right.
to do that now, but we do a
Right.
little bit different, different kind of impact now, but
Right. Right. But it does go to show that, right? Because depending on the type of marketing that you're doing, it can have that level of
yeah.
impact. And I think that is an important reminder. So while I was mentioning it at a little tongue in cheek, at the end of the day, it could have that potential, and it is 100% right. I think I have a friend. Her wife is works at they're a no kill shelter, and it's a big uphill battle to try to maintain funds, to maintain
Yeah.
space, to all of those different things. But a big part of how they are successful is truly their marketing
Yeah.
and their ability to make these animals positioned as adoptable and to keep people aware. And, we had that kind of conversation about at a friend's dinner party about how instrumental marketing is. And I think the thing I've always loved about marketing, and I'm sure you feel this way too, is that it's creative problem solving.
Mhm.
And, if you are truly creative, it's not big budgets aren't always necessarily required, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a part of the problem solving sometimes, right? Is working around those smaller budgets and figuring out how to make the most of it.
Yeah, I think doing that early in my career was so important to making me like a very scrappy marketer. I think a lot of
Mhm.
people, if you start working at larger agencies and you've got clients with a lot of budget, you're used to certain things, right? And it definitely, I worked my way up that ladder of like getting to a more stable business with COHatch. I worked in a lot of startups before, but I think it really helped
Mhm.
me kind of shape the impact that you can make with pennies on the dollar, if not just
Right.
using your time to be creative. So yeah.
Yeah. And you and I kind of had the inverse experience. I started at bigger agencies first with bigger budgets. And to me, it was like bigger budgets sometimes equaled bigger barriers, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
all those dollars went towards a lot more layers and
Yeah.
usually like legal involved and more kind of like teams and things like that. And then now running a smaller, more mission based business, yeah, I'm my own client,
Yeah.
best client ever, right? And then you have to figure out how to be scrappy and creative and
Yeah.
you do maximize the dollars and the opportunities, and there are less layers and people usually involved. And so things can be more agile and it can do more testing and learning and creating efficiencies. Whereas like when you have those bigger budgets, sometimes then you have to kind of, I don't know, almost validate
Yeah.
those dollars more, and you don't actually maximize every penny. And to me, sometimes there's more waste in my opinion, honestly,
Oh yeah, for
because you
sure.
don't watch every dollar and every cent that goes through. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's the important part. If you're
So what
a
was your
mission, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think the important
no
part, if you're
finish?
if you're looking at big budgets and things like that, a lot of those businesses, they have other ways of making an impact, right? And it's maybe not so local and not
Hmm.
so in touch with what the actual needs are. It's more of like a generic overlay of what they can possibly do. And I
Yeah.
think that's, even though it's harder to be a smaller business or a freelancer, it definitely, at least for me, it's always been more rewarding to be able to like see my personal, like I helped that dog or I worked with this person and now they've
Yeah.
launched a series of books or whatever it is. And I think that's
Hmm.
always there's good and bad both, but I do
Sure.
like the challenge of being a smaller, scrappier kind of thing. So.
Yeah. That's such a great point. The direct impact. You get to see that so much more when
Mhm.
you're dealing with a smaller scale. So I'm curious, how's your approach to the community impact evolved sort of since moving to Phoenix and working with COHatch?
Yeah, so my definition of community and community impact has definitely shifted over the last couple of years. I was living on the road for about 2.5 years during our wonderful COVID years. And I think that whole situation definitely changed the way we look at community and community impact.
Hmm.
I spent a lot of time in Phoenix. I lived in Phoenix previously before I took my trip and did all that fun stuff. And it really has always felt like home. And even though I had friends here before, it was always very hit and miss. I didn't really have like a true community. But as I'm now more rooted in Phoenix, it's been increasingly more meaningful and important to me to figure out how to have an impact and how to find the right people in the community and to reach and do the right things that actually have meaningful community impact within that smaller circle. Um, COHatch, I've been here for almost 4 years now. I've learned a lot about impact and impact marketing. I think many people who have been through agency life or who have had larger scale clients probably know that everything is usually tied to the bottom line, right? So everything that you
Hmm.
do has to make some kind of increase and bump you up more in the green. What I've really enjoyed with my time at COHatch is that I've felt like the pressure has been off to attach every single thing to revenue, and I can still feel it in my body a little bit every time that I pitch something or we do a campaign and I'm like, oh God, but what if we don't make money and we just spend all this money on random collateral or
Yeah.
whatever. But I really have had the pressure taken off of me, and it's really helped me shift my mindset a little bit, if not a lot. Matt Davis, who's our CEO, has had to mold me from the beginning because I've always worked in startups. I've always worked in businesses where it's, like I said, everything's
Hmm.
tied to the bottom line. If you don't do well,
Yeah.
people don't get paid, right? Um,
Hmm.
but when I first joined the team, I had obviously had all that experience. All I could see was like, we got to be efficient, dollar signs, that's got to be the first thing.
Right.
But it was a real breath of fresh air for me because it
Yeah.
wasn't about a conversion. It was about what makes a lasting impression on our members, on our team members, on our community, because those are the
Hmm.
stories, those are the metrics, so to speak, that last a
Hmm.
lifetime. And it's
Right.
very, very different. And it's definitely more of like a qualitative metric, right? But we define conversions as anything that makes an impact on our people, right? We have members that mention things in passing, like, I've got my kid's first birthday coming up. And part of our membership is you get free life events now. So everybody that's a member, they have 3 events per year they can host at any of our locations completely for free. And we track that. We want to make sure
Hmm.
that our members are using those benefits and getting the most out of it. And that really truly is, I would say, the majority of our reviews, the majority of the metrics that I track is going to be the stories I hear from people, the memories that are made, how engaged people are with our brand and the experience we provide. And
Hmm.
all of that has really led to some great, amazing partnerships. Like, you're looking
Hmm.
Together Digital is a great partnership for us. Star House is
Yeah.
another one. We're working locally with Star House in Columbus to help renovate and completely redo a unhoused facility for youth in Columbus. So we're working with them. We're also
Oh,
working with
awesome.
Sanctuary Night to help with those that are in sex work and making sure that they're housed and healthy and safe. And it's things like that we wouldn't have been able to do if we were purely focused on revenue. But I will
Right.
say that that's the stuff that investors are interested in. A lot of people nowadays, especially if they're wanting to invest big dollars in business, they want to know what you're doing for the people and they want to be invested directly in their local communities.
Mhm.
They want to see like physical, tangible evidence that you're doing something before they even put money in your business or your idea. And it's some of that stuff that we do out of the goodness of our heart because it's stuff that's so meaningful to us, but it has
Right.
allowed our business to grow tenfold. We have people wanting to create impact hubs like we're doing at Star House and other cities now. And we'd
Mhm.
love to do it, but now we're out of bandwidth kind of situation, right? So
Yeah.
it's I've learned a lot. I think it's definitely is a mind shift set for most
Mhm.
marketers to not see
Yeah.
the dollar signs.
Right.
But I feel like I've learned quite a bit, and Matt has really been like, don't worry about it. It's all going to work out if we do the right
Right.
thing for the people. So,
Mhm. Yeah, it's really focusing on the long game versus the short game and
yeah.
the immediate returns. Because I think what you're building, in my opinion, and it sounds like we're very much aligned in that way, right? Is like you're building belief, you're building trust by establishing and living out your values as an organization, as a
Yeah.
brand. And I think that's what we've always loved is having COHatch as a partner. And for those of you who aren't familiar, live listeners, I've dropped the link to the COHatch website in the chat. We'll include it in the show notes. And for those of you who aren't familiar, they provide co-working and rented office spaces throughout the country, namely in the Midwest and in the South as well. And they're kind of expanding all over. But again, like you said, offering up those like life event type spaces. And it is very community centric. And your community managers, like, I mean, I have my favorite locations and I know my community managers and they know what's going on with my life and they know my kids' names. And I know what's going on with them and their families because, there's something about, having a culture. All of us are living this new world of, hybrid and remote work. And a lot of us miss that aspect of, company culture. And I think what, CoHatch does really well is it provides that extension of that and that sense of community. And so like partnerships and working with organizations like ours, Together Digital members, in case you don't know, y'all should know because we messaged it a lot. But like if you're ever looking for co-working space, we get like our members get 30% off of co-working space, which is so generous. And then if you're looking to rent office space, like Richard's been working with some of our members to help them find and get space as well, which has been amazing. But I have to say, Erin, what does that do for you as a marketer too, right? When somebody as high up at the very top comes to you and says, I don't want you to worry about the bottom line all the time. I want you to also think about like impact and opportunity. What does that do for your sense of risk taking and innovation?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things about working at COHatch and the leadership at COHatch, they put so much trust in their people to know the right thing and do the right thing. And I think there have been several roles or even freelance projects that I've taken on where I've been so scared to fail, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
do something, you have a really good idea, it's going to cost some money, and you're just terrified. Like you've never done it before, but you think it's going to be good. And if it's not, you're like, oh God, I could be out of here. I might
Mm-hmm.
not be able to pay my bills next month.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that fear here at all.
Yeah.
And there have definitely been days where I've shed happy tears about it because
Aw.
I always have, it's always been, I'm a very empathetic person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I care so
Mm-hmm.
much about every single person. Like I'm one of those people, like I see an ant on the sidewalk and I try not to step on it. And
Yeah.
so
Same.
it's some
I
of
love it.
that like it's so nice to be able to bring that part of me to work and be able
Yes.
to lead my team with that mindset as well. So like all the
Mm-hmm.
things that we do, which we do a lot of internal communication as well for my team. And for the whole like broader organization of COHatch, we do a lot of like training and rollouts. And like my team is so focused on trying to do the right thing for other people,
Mm-hmm.
and it just bleeds into everything that we do now. And I like every time I talk to people on my team or even other
Yeah.
people, like our community managers, everybody is just so impact and heart driven. I just
Uh-huh.
haven't seen it anywhere else, and
Yeah. That's fantastic.
it's a very good feeling. It's much
Yeah.
different than most places I've been. So
Yeah, it gives you a good reason to show up. And then, like you said, it without that risk or without that fear of failure, that desire to one, show up, try harder, lean in, take those risks, be more innovative. Like, how much better of a company are you all because of that? And I have to say, too, I thought it was super sweet. So, shout out to all of your coworkers, by the way. You shared yesterday, I think it was, or maybe the day before on LinkedIn that you were coming on the podcast. I have
oh
never
my
seen so
gosh.
many coworkers do shout outs, reshare the post, give the praise. So, I mean, y'all are doing something right.
Ugh,
And the
I know
amount of
I
support
was
that I saw. So that was really wonderful. I loved
you're
seeing
gonna
that.
you are gonna make me tear up thinking about it. I was already reaching out to everybody because as soon as I posted it, I just was
Uh-huh.
getting notifications back that
Yeah.
everybody had shared it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, all are
Yeah.
too kind to me."
Uh-huh.
So we have a
It's
very very good culture.
you do. And Erin, you only get what you give. So it's a reflection of what you're putting out there. So kudos to you as well.
Well, thank
And
you.
again, to the company and the culture that you guys are building and creating. So yeah, it just goes to show what a great culture that you all are fostering and with the work that you're doing. All right, let's talk a little bit about some specifics on a campaign
Yeah.
where you were able to achieve both your business goals and community impact, where maybe budget was a little bit of a constraint.
Yeah. So one of the things that this was early on in my career with COHatch, and we had finally gotten a team big enough, and I was getting to the spot where I was like, what fun things can we do now? You know what I'm saying? Like we were just trying to get through all of the things that we knew we had to do, and we finally were to the spot where we could do something different, something new. And one of my favorite things that I've ever seen from a marketing perspective was something called a good newspaper. And I'm sure several people, if anybody's on here, has heard of the original good newspaper. I get their emails. And I loved it. And it was one of those things that I was like, how do I take that and do something here? Obviously, we have so many members, we have so much going on. It's hard to get it all together. But I was really gung ho about it. And we didn't print is expensive for those
Yeah.
that don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have thousands of members. Talking about doing a physical good newspaper is an expensive task, and one that's probably not, I wouldn't say it's a thankless project, but it's one of those things that I was not anticipating to have as much feedback, good feedback from it as we did. And it's one of the things that we started off as doing is like, we thought we were just going to do it once and see how it went. And now we went from doing it monthly to quarterly because it's a huge task.
Yeah.
It's not really a true campaign per se, but it is one of my favorite marketing projects we've ever done. It's one of my favorite strategies that helps not only us, but the community. We deliver it to our restaurant partners. It's one of those things that it just is such a really cool concept. And I didn't realize, even with the small budget, I think we started with we did like maybe 200 or 300 copies the first time. And we had such like overwhelming feedback that we were like, we got to keep doing this. Like we have so many people that want to be a part and share, and investors love getting it. Like it's stuff that we get asked for. Like we do it quarterly now. So we went from monthly to quarterly this last year, just because it's such a heavy lift and we have so many scholars now. But I get questions pretty much every month from the team. When's the next good newspaper that's coming out? My members want to see it. I have a member that wants to be in it. The investors want to know what stories are happening. And it's one of our most powerful tools and projects we've ever done, because it really showcases not only our impact, because we really do try to stay away from like showing off the things that we do. Like we may make an announcement that we open another location, but for the most part, we show off, what our members are doing, our nonprofits, what are their causes, what projects are they working on, what kind of funding, what events are they doing, startups, what ideas are coming up and what's trending and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And even our team members, we have so many great team members that are doing volunteer work. Laurie, who's in Delaware, she does the blood drive. It seems like every other week, and she is the most passionate, fantastic community manager. She stays really involved, and it's one of my favorite things to be able to tell the stories of other people, because I think more often than not, we get so invested in our business and our idea, we lose the stories of the people that we work with, right? Like why we actually do what we do and how we impact people and how people think of us, and the memories, everything that's attached to our brand beyond the people that are doing the work. It's your best marketing tool for
Yeah.
yourself, but it's also the best way to be able to understand what people need and how you can help others in your community. So it's not a specific campaign, but I was like, I got to talk
Sure.
about this
I
because
love it.
it's one of my favorite projects that we do. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I always grab one whenever I'm in one of the co-working spaces.
mhm.
And I remember getting super excited because I got featured in one.
Yeah,
Was it the year before last? And my kids were excited because they got to keep a printed copy. And, in this digital age, it's such a novel thing. But you're right. It's such a small, nuanced thing. And there is something to um, that specifically that does breathe in life to that sense of community. That is such a great idea. So I think that's such a wonderful notion to give to the community to think about what are those kind of nuanced ways if you're trying to bring back a sense of community and connectedness and something like that where you're featuring the people, the customers, the community, and something
yeah,
that's printed that feels more tactile and permanent is such a beautiful way to express that. And it's not, it might require a bit of a lift. And then if you're kind of doing it, monthly might be too much, but quarterly
yeah.
is just enough of a way. That's such a great way to get the engagement and to keep the community involved. That's a really, really wonderful, beautiful way to do it. I was going to just throw in the fun little anecdote that I live in this really cutesy little neighborhood that my kids help deliver the town crier. Our village
Oh,
literally has a printed newsletter that goes out.
that's amazing.
And I know, right? It's very, very quaint. And they only just stopped it a few years back, but they used to have like a whole column that was Neighboring with Nina, where they announced new people that bought houses in the neighborhood and they
That's
would interview the
amazing.
families and everything. But
Yeah,
it still like features all the small businesses in town. It talks about like events that are happening or upcoming. It talks about, history within the village. It's just, and I hope it never goes away. It's been happening for like 100 years and I
that's
hope it
amazing.
really
Yeah,
never goes away. Cause you're right.
that's
It
a
kind of has that sense of community and it's a once a month thing from I think Labor Day to Memorial Day. And then we have a little bit of a break. And I love that my
that's
kids
awesome.
do it. They get a little bit of cash for it. It's like their little job.
Aw,
But yeah, it
that
does. It
is
breeds a
great.
sense of community. So yeah, great idea.
That's fantastic. And I guess for those of you that are probably like, oh, I don't have it in the budget for print, I totally get it. We also do like a newsletter form that we do in our off cycle.
Hmm.
For if we have other stories that are coming in, we just can't wait, or we've got something really cool going on.
Yeah.
I will say, and I think and I'll talk more about this, is impact marketing does not have to be expensive. And one of the cheapest, easiest ways to motivate people to do more, to make a larger impact is storytelling, whether that's
Hmm.
your story, somebody else's
Yes.
story. All it costs is time and a little bit
Hmm.
of brain power. And those moments are far more impactful than delivering on a KPI, at least in my experience here. So
Absolutely. Absolutely, Erin. I agree wholeheartedly. I love that. Awesome. All right, let's talk about misconceptions in mission driven marketing. What do you feel is one of the biggest, or if you want to name a couple even?
yeah, I think the biggest one, I keep saying it, people think mission driven marketing is too expensive. It's going to take too much time. Only the big businesses can truly make an impact. I know people look at us all the time. They're like, oh, that huge project you're doing with Star House is so great, but I could never do that. You don't have to make an impact. And I think one of the biggest, and this is not a COHatch story, but one of the biggest things that made me teary eyed, which as I get older, I notice that I'm always like my little heartstrings are just pulled in every direction. But the craziest thing, I ran into somebody that I used to volunteer with at shelter work. She knew a guy who had just retired, has been an engineer all his life, made good money. He just bought a property in Tucson and he's helping reset and retrain a lot of behavioral dogs. It is a thankless job. I have worked with so many behavioral cases in the past, and I got connected with this guy, and I was just really moved by his whole career, like he basically changed his career at the last part of before he retired, started doing all this dog training, did all this stuff. We got connected. I was so moved by his mission and all the things that he's trying to do. I sent him $5 on his website. I sent him $5. Don't know this man. He didn't know me. I was just a lady that put $5 into his PayPal account. 3 hours later, I got an email back from him, and he was thanking me profusely for my $5. Like, he was like, and I said, it's only $5. Like, I could send more, but I mean, you're getting started. I don't know everything about you. It could have been $1,000, you know, but $5. And he sent me an email back after I said, it's only $5. I'm looking forward to seeing all your progress. And he said to me, it's not just $5. It's everything to me. Without people giving me $1, $2, $5, $10, $1,000, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where I was like, you know, maybe it's little old man syndrome. I don't know. But I was just like, I was so moved by him being willing to go back and forth with me so much over the fact that I spent $5.
Yes.
So I want everybody to understand that, like, you don't have to do much to make an impact. And sometimes it's just listening, right? Yeah. You get those stories, you tell those stories, you find ways to discount things here and there for businesses or people you believe in. I had a lady in my freelance days. She was 62, 63, and she had just started writing romance novels, and she wrote 3 of them, wanted a website built, and she had no idea. And I did it all for free because I was just so moved by the fact that she's awesome. This late in the game and doing something completely different, right? Yeah. And that's a story that I will remember for the rest of my life. And she's still got her website up and she's still writing books.
Love it.
So it's stuff like that I think if you can find small ways to do it, like, you don't have to go big, you don't have to go grand.
Right.
There's so many ways that you can make an impact, and there's so many things out there now, like there's different software for like rounding up and donating back. So even for invoicing, things like that. It's really easy to do if you're just willing to spend a little bit of time thinking about it. And it's way easier to do if it's something that you're passionate about too, right? So those are the biggest misconceptions that I think people have. And I know people probably look at me and they're like, Erin, you're such a large business and you have so much. And I do now, but I did not before.
Well, and being on the other side of that too is like what you're making me think of is the fact that, like, when you are, you know, doing mission driven marketing, making sure that every interaction you are treating each customer with kindness and care and appreciation, and letting them know that each interaction counts and it's not just transactional, that it is transformational. Every time somebody decides to take whatever action that they can take, you know, whether it's $1, $5, like it matters. And making sure that you're explicitly saying that and letting them know is creating, it's cementing the relationship, it's building trust, and it's loyalty. Because right, like you continue to, they'll keep showing up, right? They'll keep following along, they'll keep contributing, versus just saying, okay, yeah, thanks for your $1, okay, bye. You know what I mean? Makes such a difference when you treat it differently, or when you see it differently, and appreciate every little interaction and appreciate any instance in which they can show up and give, versus just kind of diminishing their contribution regardless. Yeah.
100%. That's so important. It's so important to get into that. I think we're all so busy and life moves so fast, and it's hard sometimes to really stop and be grateful for those moments when you have them, where you get to learn about a client, or you get to learn about a team member or a member. But it really is what it's all about. And if you're trying to find ways to have an impact, like the first thing you can do is listen and be there and understand somebody, I wouldn't say deeply, but deeper in order to make that impact.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny when we go and do member one-on-ones for all of our new members with Together Digital, and they're always like, oh, thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are. And I say, I know how busy you are. You know, my time is no more valuable than yours, and you're investing to be here. So I'm going to invest in being here for you. And it's one of those things, like, I love it. It's my favorite part of the day. I get to learn and understand how they found out about us, why they're here, what they need. It's just as valuable for me, hopefully, as it is for them. And
I
so
know.
it
I
is
think you and I have
definitely,
talked already 3 times since I joined, and it's
I
not even
know.
been a month.
It's so great. It's so great. It is so great. And it's absolutely well worth my time. And it's one of those things now as a business owner that I will never change my mind about. I will always find a way to make time on my calendar for my members because they are first and foremost the most important part of my business because without them, I have no business.
Yeah,
And for any
100%.
other business without your customers, how do you have a business? So it's just one of those things. You just have to make room for those kinds of, it's not transactional. You are building
No,
relationships. I don't care what you're selling. It is about those relationships and showing up. And so when people take the time to show up, you got to show up for them and you got to say thank you and appreciate the time and the energy, the effort and the choice because we
yeah.
have so many
So
choices
many.
now, right?
Yeah, almost too
An
many. Yeah.
abundance of choices.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, we just did a masterclass on sales. And oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember the quote that she said. She was Westland. She was brilliant. She said, we are also running up against the challenge that we are always faced with is the decision not to solve the problem, to not do anything. We're not just competing with our competitors, we're competing with the choice to not do anything. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, she's so right. Anyhow, the
That's
next question I
so
have
true.
for you is I mentioned earlier, we've got COHatches across the country. You guys are growing, obviously. How do you ensure that you, can, from a local, I don't know how I worded this question. It doesn't read right to me now. Hold on, let me read it and then try to say it. How do you scale authentically and create impact with initiatives nationally when you're kind of, you're all over?
Yeah.
Hopefully
I
that made
think,
sense.
yeah, it does make sense. I hope my answer will make sense. It's one of my biggest challenges. I think I have worked at like internationally involved companies before, and it's always been very blank slate everywhere, right? Like you may have a, language difference, but the brand, the values, all that stuff, there's not a lot of stuff that really changes too much. But for us, as we go into every city, every town, it is a challenge
Mm,
because we have learned so much in the last 3 to 4 years, especially with how everybody's operating differently post COVID too. Like
yeah.
the culture of people getting out and about is very different than what it used to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're a very small team, so there's only 4 people that work with me on marketing, including our part-time intern right now. So,
Wow.
and we support all of our locations nationally, and it's a challenge to get the right mix of like, this is COHatch, this is what we do,
Yeah.
and then also, we're going to Tampa, and then we're also in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It's very, very different, and the people are very different everywhere we go. But we do spend quite a bit of time trying to get to know the community before we go in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of demographic research goes into it for us, understanding what are the hot spots. One of the biggest things we have learned, especially post COVID, these downtown areas that were once bustling and everybody was so stoked to go to the office. I don't know if that was
Yeah.
ever true, but people don't want to go down there anymore. Like they
Yeah.
want to be working close to home. They want to be doing stuff that's important to them, their families, working with organizations that are actually making improvements and progressing in their neighborhoods. Like we're
Right.
getting down to very granular, like it's not about are you making a widespread change in the nation. It's about are you making a change in my neighborhood
Yeah.
down the street 2 blocks away. So we do a lot of work trying to get in with chambers, trying to meet all kinds of local businesses, even businesses that
Yeah.
we know won't use our space, retail
Mm.
businesses, things like that. Working with the city to ensure that we're delivering on what they actually need and how their people are operating and coming together. Um, but once we open a location is really when I think the local really hits in for us because we try to do a lot of upfront. We do have people on the ground, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's some of that you can't get until you see the people using our spaces. And so
Right.
that always goes back to the storytelling. Like we have so many great nonprofits, we have so many great entrepreneurs, startups. We've got all these great people and they're so different everywhere. but they're
Mm-hmm.
also the same, right? They all
Right.
have kind of the same needs. But it's also one of those things that I could name half a dozen nonprofits that I've talked to and interviewed that I'm like, y'all do the same thing, but you're all completely different, you know?
Right.
And it's seeing that, and once we've opened our doors and seeing the people that use our spaces, that really helps me gauge the mix a bit better and make sure that we're doing things authentically.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we run into any crazy stuff before we open a location, you know, some communities are different. Development is always fun.
Yeah.
But I think some of that is, it's so important for you to do a lot of the planning up front to make sure that you're not missing the mark locally,
Mm-hmm.
but you really aren't going to know until you're there and you're
There.
talking to the people and you meet the people, and especially the most engaged people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I take a lot of stock into the feedback that we get from early
Mm-hmm.
users. I take a lot of stock into testimonials. Like, we have Slack channels where we get every single review that comes in, and I review every single one. Our team responds to every review. We take all that feedback and we do something with it, right? Or if somebody shares a really great moment, like we have impact stories for our scholars, they can go
Mm-hmm.
in and add anything that they've achieved, you know, being in our space. And that's the stuff that, you know, like I'll reach out to somebody same day because it's
Yeah.
so important to me to understand locally what's needed, because so many other businesses I've been at have always been focused nationally.
Right.
And once you get to that size, right, like losing a member or 10 or 20 or 50
Yeah.
doesn't feel like anything. But every
Mm.
member that is at COHatch means something to me.
Yeah.
They're here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime we have a bad experience, I want to know
Right.
why.
Mm-hmm.
What did we do something wrong? Is there something that we could have done differently? Is there just a different mindset or a different culture?
Mm-hmm.
And I learn every day,
I
every single
love
day.
it. I think you just made such a good point, and I'm going to put a pin in it and say that it's listening. It's
Mm-hmm.
listening and acting on what you hear. And it sounds so simple, but it's so profound and important, because I think a lot of businesses want to create impact, but it becomes an echo chamber because they don't look outside themselves and they don't ask for the feedback. And then if they do ask for the feedback, they don't truly listen and or act on it. Right. They'll
Yeah.
sit with it, they'll hold on to it, they'll sit on it, but they don't really take it into account and they don't truly act on it. But I think that is such an important aspect of it. And I will say, so we got to tour, we did a road show, not this last year, but the year before that. And so we got to tour like Indianapolis, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. And so, yeah, shout out to Lynette in Pittsburgh. We loved it. But getting to see each of the different locations, what was really cool is that there was that common, like, you know, you felt that common thread of like COHatch, you know, branding and just consistency of certain things. But at the same time, I love the way you all you can definitely feel like that outside community brought inward. And, you know, each of your community managers had like that sense of like understanding and nuance of like what from the outside influences from the outside community got brought into like the design or like the layout
Mm-hmm.
of the actual COHatch. And I love that intentionality. And so like the community managers, like I said, specifically Lynette was really good about like pointing out certain things about the design and like the walls and things like that kind of reflected Pittsburgh and its history and that area in particular. And I think a lot of that, I don't know, it speaks true to the people who, you know, live in that area and want to work in that area when they see somebody new coming into the space and they're like, well, I want myself, my home, my values, my city to feel reflected. And I think that's really smart. It goes to show that you all are listening, and then you're reflecting back to the people that you want to feel that are coming into the space to feel seen, heard, and valued. And when they see that, you know, they feel comfortable, they feel at home, and it's just so smart. And all it is listening. So I think it makes, to me, all the sense in the world. I also want to give a shout out because I know you guys are opening a Covington location soon. So we have a lot of Cincinnati friends in our membership base and Cincinnati listeners. So if you're listening, get ready. Was it February? Is that right?
Yep. We're
Okay.
hoping for January,
All right.
February.
It's exciting. Lots of awesome little businesses out there in Covington too, the Main Strasse area. fabulous area. So if you're looking for some space to co-work or office space in Covington, you'll need to check it out. Maybe we'll do a Together Digital event there too.
Yeah,
All right. Fantastic. Okay. Could you share a time when a community initiative, let's just go to the other side of things, because, sometimes things don't always go to plan, and we learn from all things. It's not just about success without strife, right? So when did a community initiative maybe not quite go as planned, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I think one of the ones that I was so excited about this initiative. So one of our Give scholars, Chad Justin, he's got a patented wear pack. It started with during clear bag, everybody does clear bags now for like sporting events and things like that. So he patented his own. And he was a Boost scholar for us, a startup scholar for us for several years. He ended up expanding, moving to Cleveland, has his own warehouse, got his own production facility now. He got funding from several COHatch people, members and founders alike. And it was really cool for him to come back because he saw what we were doing with Star House online and said he wanted to figure out a way for us to work together and collaborate. So we went on kind of this rabbit hole of like, okay, we're going to design a Star House wear pack. We're going to do this back to school campaign so that anybody who purchases a wear pack can either give it back and give it to the youth at Star House through their drop-in center, which is open 24 hours a day. So they give things like backpacks, food, toothbrushes, all that stuff to the unhoused youth of Columbus. And so we were doing this. We were like, oh, this is really cool. We obviously bought a few to donate back. And then we put the campaign out there. We pushed it for 2 months. I think we ended up, outside of our purchases, we ended up getting like 6 or 7 bags purchased. We even got picked up by a couple of news outlets for this. And so it was one of those things where it's like, oh, it sounded so good. There was a lot of logistics behind it. We really wanted to make an impact with it, a larger impact with it, I guess. And, we kind of fell short of that mark, right? And it was harder for me and Dave because we were like, oh, we did all these interviews, we put all these social posts and got photos and did design work and all this. And we only ended up with 6 bags being purchased despite all of the good feedback and all that. So it's one of those things that a lot of times when you're doing impact-driven item or marketing campaigns or strategies, you have to do a lot of logistics. You have to do a lot of work up front. And if you've never done it before, you have to be prepared to watch it fly or fail. And I'm not saying I would never do something like it again. I think if we had a longer runway, like there could have been things that we could have done to maybe prep more for it and put more behind it even. But for us, because we do so many other things, it's also a challenge for us to get good initiatives off the ground because we offer so much. People, we do co-working and office and meetings and events, and we've got all kinds of things going on everywhere. And so what I learned from that particular campaign, we had a crazy busy summer. We introduced a new offer. We had a lot of people that were really interested in all our other stuff, and we had so much other stuff going on. It probably just wasn't the right time to do it. But it's one of those things that, you live, you learn. Yeah. Didn't love the results, but we still were able to make a small impact, which is important too. Yeah. So if you're looking at yourself from a failure perspective and you're saying, oh, I shot for the moon and, only got to 1 star, that's okay. Yeah. You live and you learn. But it was one of those that I was like, oh, I took so much from it. And like, if we were to ever do a collaboration project with somebody else like that, I definitely would go about things a little bit differently. But I think I still would probably say yes to a project like that. It just would be different circumstances and timing.
Right. Timing. Yeah. Timing has a lot to do with it. Right. I feel like some of my most of the projects that maybe haven't gone exactly the way that I wanted had a lot to do with timing and lead time for promotions because and frequency of messaging is probably like another big thing. We are competing with a very
much stuff,
so much attention. Yeah, for sure. That's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's not always easy to talk about those things, but I think it's really important, to kind of learn where we have fallen flat because we don't talk about that stuff enough, but that's really where the learnings truly are, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Successes. Yeah. Awesome. All right. How do you measure success when it comes to impact marketing? What do you feel are some of the metrics that matter most?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it a million times, we always go back to revenue, right? And it's always really hard, especially when we're doing things. I mean, like we're doing like a build and brew event in Columbus for Star House, where we're, all the proceeds of adult beverages and building furniture and donating will go to Star House. Tracking the success of that would obviously be related to donations and things and, the money that goes around it. But it's also hard to track in some ways because it's some of that stuff. Our members love that and they stick around because we make it so easy for them to access things that they need, whether if they're fulfilled with volunteering. And we've had, anytime we do a Star House renovation day, we always have so many people that want to volunteer and they're like, thank you for making this so accessible. So it's stuff like that. You'll see the revenue and the donation side, but you'll also see it long term, right? Like we talked about the relationship building and how easy and accessible it is to be able to do certain things around impact. But really the thing for me, and one of the most powerful things, we switched over to Sprout Social 2.5 years ago. And one of my favorite tools that they have is the social listening tool. And it basically generates like this word cloud of like positive, negative, neutral intent. You can read through all of, like what would be like high quality, highly engaged people, whether they're members or just fans of what we do, right, online. And I can't say enough. And I know that's how we all operate now. Like if we want to go somewhere new, we look at reviews, right? Yeah. So social media, listening to that, reviews, anybody that's a repeat person. I get a lot of people that are individual entrepreneurs or influencers or whatever, and they're working out of our spaces and they're sharing content with us all day, every day. It's almost impossible for us to keep up with our social now because we have so many people that are so drawn to sharing about us.
That's fantastic.
It's that stuff for me shows the impact and how much you actually truly make a dent in somebody's day, right? Yeah. Our goal is always to be the place where you come and you're the most fulfilled version of yourself. You're working just down the street from your house or where your kids go to school. Yeah. You have access to volunteering. We make it easy. You sign up, you bring your kids. You can go to the gym right down the road. You can go to some of our restaurants. We do all this stuff on purpose. Yeah. Because we want it to be easy and we want the impact to go as far and as deep as you're willing to take it. And those stories, those social posts, the reviews, the feedback, those are really the things that I look at when it comes to impact marketing. And especially when we're doing like partnerships and things like that too. I want to know, did our partnership help you in your community? If you're a scholar of ours, did it help you find funding? Volunteers, did somebody offer to volunteer to do something as a COHatch member now on your board? Right. Those are the stories and data points we try to collect, as well as like how many times are you coming into the space? What are you using all the things in your membership? Are you booking your free life event? If not, why not? Let's get your birthday party or something going. Those are all things that we push really hard for. And I'm really trying to get, it's so difficult to track, right? Because there are a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't want you to have my data. Right. And I get it. Yeah. But those are the really important parts of what I do in marketing. Yeah. Everything, ad impressions, whatever. I could care less about that now because the real conversion, the real result for us is about how deep our impact goes for each individual. Right. I don't necessarily have to make an impact to all 7 billion people in the world. Right. But if I can help 100 people in Delaware, Ohio, that's crazy. Yeah. That's an amazing impact.
Yeah. Because the ripple effect as well, right? Yeah. That word of mouth and the story sharing. I love that. Yeah. Positive like engagement and that positive engagement. Those are both really huge. Love it. All right. For anyone who is looking to start to incorporate purpose into their marketing strategy, what is one action that they could start to take this week?
I actually have been thinking about this for myself personally because we do a lot of stuff at work, right? So we got a lot of stuff going on for impact and I love that. But one of the biggest things as we're getting into 2025, I've been doing a lot of sitting with myself. And I think the biggest thing, if you want to start doing this for your business, or you want to start doing this as a side thing, volunteering, whatever, you got to sit down and you got to know yourself. What are you passionate about? What time can you commit? Is there money you can put towards it? Is your time more valuable than your money right now? Is it a donation thing that you'd rather do versus, volunteering? That's so important for you to get down and dirty with those details, because if you start doing something and going down a road because you just want to make an impact and you don't care what it is, or it doesn't matter right now, you just want to do something, you're not going to help anybody. You're going to be unmotivated. Results aren't going to be good, and everybody's going to be frustrated, whoever you're trying to help. If you can figure that out, and I'm giving you another step here, connect with somebody on LinkedIn that's a part of that cause, or somebody that knows the real true needs. Set up a coffee chat. I mean, that's all we're about together digital. I've had so many chats with people already, and it's so fun to be able to really understand people's needs and issues and try to find solutions and brainstorm that. And sometimes it's as simple of like, I just need you to set up an email signature or make some tweaks on my website. Like I help people do that from time to time because they need it, and it's a simple thing that I can do. So no matter what you decide to do, it's so important to get it aligned with what you really care about. Because if you don't, I mean, I've been guilty of it myself. Somebody needs help, and then I commit myself to 10 hours and I don't want to do it because I don't see the impact. It doesn't impact me the same way. Like all my dog stuff impacts me significantly more than it would for another cause, probably, because that's just who I am. So and always just ask people what they need. That's the first step. Like, don't put yourself as like, I want to be the savior, I want to be the hero. Like, you've got to put your listening ears on and help people where they actually need to be helped. Because like you said, we have the choice now that if we have a problem, we have so many other problems, we can say, we don't want to fix that right now. We've got 7 other problems. So make sure your solutions are aligned with the impact that you're trying to make.
I agree. Yeah, I think we chatted this earlier too, and we were talking through your onboarding, and we've got, after the new year, our Goal Getters workshop for members, and it's all about values alignment and understanding your values and setting your goals so that you're not doing the shoulds of everyone else. You are doing the things you feel are in alignment with the things you should be doing. And it just aligns so nicely with what you just said, because a lot of us face burnout because we do have a lot of skills and talents, and we want to serve, help, and support others. But oftentimes we end up giving those gifts away because it's just like, oh yeah, I can fix that, I can do that. But then when you do and put those energies, like you said, towards the things that do fill us up, it feels so different versus kind of just giving it all away without that return of, oh, this fulfills a value that I hold. It's helping animals. It's, helping somebody that's elderly, that's writing a book for the first time and has been sitting on this aspiration for so long. So yeah, it's a different kind of reward. I love that advice. All right. We've got a few minutes left, and we're going to do one more question and then our power round. But I want to make sure that our live listeners know that I love it. You've been getting lots of accolades, of course, Erin. You're much loved in the chat. But if you all have any questions, you are more than welcome to drop in a question if you have them. We're both, bibliophiles. We love our books. Have there been any books in particular that have shaped your approach to mission-driven marketing that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, so it's just awful for somebody who's like, oh, I'm so impact-driven and mission-driven. I'm going to pull it out because I finally found it, and I told you I was like searching for it earlier.
Yeah.
This book, How Change Happens, on my to-be-read list for like the last year or so, and I have not picked it up yet. It's been one that I've been wanting to read. I will say I am more of a fiction girl these days. I used to read a lot of business books, but work stays at
You're
work
living
now.
it.
Trying to
living
do it. But this book is one I've been wanting to pick up for a while, and I think there's so many things that I'm trying to get involved with right now that it makes sense, and it came highly recommended. So How Change Happens by Leslie R. Crutchfield.
Awesome.
And it talks through successful and failed campaigns of the 21st century that have inspired societal, social, cultural change. And it gives you some like actual tips. So I've skimmed several chapters that I have not fully read the book, but if you're interested in learning how to make change, whether that be at work or anywhere else, I think that would be a good read.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to, you got that 24-hour flight coming up. You'll have to
I know.
you have to let us know. And we've got our books, podcasts, and articles channel on Slack. So you have to let us know what you think of it.
Yeah, I definitely will. I've got
Make a
so many things.
recommendation. It sounds amazing. I like the thought of it. All right. Well, I don't see any questions popping up yet, so we'll go through our power round. All right. God,
Sweet.
I'm a nature nerd and I love a good hike, but I also love the water. So I wanted to know, desert hike or day on the water? Which would you choose?
I absolutely love both. So in the summer, we are on the river pretty much every other weekend. We do a
Yeah.
lot of paddle boarding. My
Love
dog
it.
Rory is my captain.
Aw.
I'll have to post some photos in the
Yes.
Slack channel about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Right now, though, the weather is perfect.
Mm.
The weekend weather is supposed to be high of 72, and
Ooh,
it's sunny and beautiful.
jelly.
So we're going to go for a hike
Yay.
this time around. We do a lot of hiking and backpacking, and the
Love
dogs
it.
have been in the house pretty much all summer.
Aw,
So we've got to
they're
run off
ready
some
to get out.
energy.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll say desert hike.
All right. I'm going to have to get out there to visit you and Meredith soon. All right. Most used app on your phone?
Oh my God, I'm so not exciting. I'm going to say Instagram.
Yeah.
Because, and it's so bad, my partner probably is so annoyed with me every night. I absolutely memes are my go-to for good and bad days, but animal videos. So I learn so many new things about animals every single day, and I'm constantly bothering Alex with look at this new animal I found, and I'm going to tell you 20 new facts about it.
I love it.
So that's how I use Instagram. I would love to say that I use it to further my knowledge and work and everywhere else, but it's mostly animals. I'm not
Animal therapy. I love it. That's great. A funny story, fun fact. I used to have a printed picture of kittens in a barrel. When my team at the agency would get really stressed out, I would just bust out the kittens in a barrel picture and be like, look, everything's going to be okay. Just look at the kittens in a barrel. You'll be all right.
That's hilarious. I love it.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. I'm going to go to the last one here because we're at time. Your 3 dogs' personalities in 3 words.
Okay, I've already talked about Rory so much. She's my first dog that I ever adopted as an adult, but the word for her is Angel. Mm-hmm. She's the best. She's the sweetest. I just can't say enough good things about her. My middle dog, Asta, who we also call Pasta most of the time.
Cute.
Her word is silly. She's a Ruz dog, high energy, runs around everywhere. She's just funny. And then Mo, which is my latest dog I got 2 years ago. She's huge. She's a Great Pyrenees cattle dog collie mix. She's got wonderful traits, and so we call her Chaos Monster. So I'll choose Chaos.
Chaos. I love it. Fantastic. Well, Erin, thank you so much for all of your insightful and very inspirational ideas on how we can all be more effective and more purposeful and mission-driven marketers. It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Absolutely. And thank you for everyone who took the time to tune in today, take some notes, share the love in the chat, as well as the conversation today. Everyone, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to see you all next week. Until then, keep asking, keep giving, and keep growing. Take care.
Produced by Heartcast Media.